he was and has been the best player on the floor for the Celtics in the first 2 games of this series, and I was super impressed. He was awesome. Jaylen Brown, he's been the best player for the Celtics so far in this thing. He had 26, 7, and 5, including the biggest shot of his life in game 1 of this series. And then after the news, which caused a tremendous amount of rancor amongst the Celtics faithful, their coach, and Jaylen Brown himself, I'm sure, that he was not named to one of the all-NBA teams. It was a story. It was something that Missoula talked about before the game. They were obviously very disappointed in this because not only did he not make All-NBA, he wasn't even close, really. I know he was the next name listed, but the lowest point total for third-team NBA, All-NBA, was Devin Booker. Devin Booker had 70 points, okay, when you tallied up his votes. Jaylen Brown had 50. So it wasn't like he was like right on the outside looking in. And so whether or not you think Jaylen Brown should have been All-NBA or not, or if the Celtics, who had the 64 wins this year, deserve to have 2 players on the All-NBA team or not, big chip on his shoulder. He played like that guy. He's picking up Siakam. He's draining shots. He's going to the basket. I mean, he was and has been the best player on the floor for the Celtics in the first 2 games of this series, and I was super impressed. He was awesome.
I mean, he was sensational. We saw everything that Jaylen Brown has worked towards throughout his entire career, all the improvements, the handling, the creation, even some of the passes that he made as well. Like he made some nice passes, I thought, in that third quarter on a pick and roll with the small pick and roll with Derek White locating him behind the arc. So I think Jaylen, he made all the right plays. He, I believe, found Tatum in the corner, or I think it was White in the corner in that same exact sequence late in the third quarter. But like he just made all the right plays offensively, obviously scored at will. The step back 3-pointer he hit for his 40th point was nasty. And he was solid defensively as well. Granted, Siakam still got some points. Brown picked up some steals. He was active. He looked like an all-NBA caliber player. And even if he wasn't named that, he is one of those guys who can look like that. And I think for Boston, if Jaylen Brown continues sustaining this, even as Tatum's been a little bit up and down, first half Tatum non-existent, shows up at halftime, and he has an awesome second half. If Jaylen Brown's giving you this, it increases their probability of beating Minnesota or Dallas next round, whether or not KP is active. But I do still think they need KP.
Did you think he should have been All-NBA?
No, I didn't vote him All-NBA.
You didn't have him All-NBA.
He was on like he would have been on my 4th team. You know what I mean? Like there's just so many good candidates this year.
Yeah, the ones that were like right on the outside looking in of All-NBA teams, in terms of the voting at least, were he, Paul George, and Tyrese Maxey. 3 outstanding players who had great seasons. I mean, I think it speaks to the strength of the league right now that those 3 were on the outside looking in, because they all had great years.
I'll tell you what, all 3 of them should have been there over Halliburton. And over Sabonis too, for that matter. I'm a little surprised.
Slow down.
Okay, fine. But over Halliburton, you agree?
Halliburton certainly got the 65 games under his belt, and I think he was awarded for the first part of the season. He was not. I think there's a totally fair argument that says, bro, he was not all NBA for a good portion of the season. Mm-hmm. He was not an all NBA caliber player for a large portion of the season. Not by his own fault. I mean, he was hurt. But he came back and played hobbled and was just nowhere near that player post-injury. And so, I mean, I think there's a fair argument, but I think that people gave him credit for what he was through the IST that took place, and then for the first whole part of the season through the All-Star game, and I think that there is always going to be a heart tug. This affects money. It does. And everybody know it affects money, and everybody knows. I know.
But it does. Yeah.
But you know that he came back to try to get to the 65 games because of this very reason. That he could make an All-NBA, because the amount of dollars difference is immense.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, and ultimately, voters have openly said that they will favor a guy who has that contract variable. So, I mean, ultimately, I think the NBA should remove that incentive, but that's a completely different discussion that we don't have to have today.
It very well may have played a role, and I think many people would think it did, with Jaylen Brown getting it last year, which then enabled Jaylen Brown to be the highest paid player in the NBA in terms of a contract extension, at least. Now that that number changes every year, and a new player is that guy. But because of when he got his All-NBA last year, he was able to sign an extension where the headline read, highest contract ever signed by an NBA player. And that was a thing. That was a narrative last year. And so I don't think, and you do wonder, what if this is Jaylen Brown's contract year? Then or extension year? Then is he All-NBA instead of Halliburton? I mean, I know there's no question it plays a role in the voting. Anyways, the point originally is Jaylen Brown is absolutely awesome. He has showed up a lot in big games. The Celtics are now, though they are maligned a lot because we don't always see their best, they're 10-2.
They're 10
in the playoffs.
They're 10.
They're 10-2 in the playoffs. You can only play who you have to play.
Yep, they're 10-2 in the playoffs. They're 74-20 on the season. They're having a spectacular year. It is just a shame, though, that they have to go through the Heat without Jimmy Butler, the Cavs without Jarrett Allen, without Donovan Mitchell to finish the series. Now against the Pacers, perhaps without Tyrese Halliburton to finish the entire series. That it's been these teams that are falling apart where they haven't been tested in months. And that's what's going to make next round against Dallas or Minnesota so fascinating, because with Dallas or Minnesota, we'll see how that series ends up developing. But it's possible, just like with Minnesota-Denver going 7 hard-fought games, and they come in, game 1, Anthony Edwards seems kind of tired, fatigued for Minnesota, where maybe Boston's facing a tired Dallas or Minnesota team in the finals, and that could work to Boston's advantage, where they've had a cakewalk until the finals, in part because they had such dominant success. They earned the 1 seed. I don't want to take that away from them. But from the West and the East side of things, that could be a great equalizer for the Celtics to actually win this whole thing if Timberwolves Mavericks goes deep, because I don't think this Indiana Pacers series, I picked it in 5 before the series. I'll change that to 4 without Halliburton if he's indeed out for the rest of the series or limited like he was tonight. He was awful. Boston will have potentially a week of rest before the finals. That's crazy.
And the idea is that they have not look, and I know that Boston fans can get upset with this, but the truth, everybody knows.
It's just the reality.
Yeah, they haven't played. They haven't played anybody that has a chance of beating them.
Nobody. It's been an absolute cakewalk. It's easier. The Celtics have had an easier path to the finals than LeBron James ever did in all of his years in the Eastern Conference.
Well, I'd have to go back and look at all of them. I don't remember them all, but
if you want, you can go back if you want to or not. But regardless, it is easy.
There's no question. As these teams are currently constituted, there's none that even have a chance.
Not even close.